I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Global Book Network, we're diving into a gripping and urgent thriller that could easily mirror tomorrow's headlines. The name of the book, America at Risk. It's written by a terrific author. His name is John Capozzi, and he has penned a high-stakes political thriller that explores Iran's nuclear ambitions and America's border vulnerabilities. This isn't just fiction, it's a wake-up call, endorsed by leaders like Admiral James Stavridis and Leno. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on GBN. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. John, thank you so much for joining us here today on GBN.
I'm glad to be here, Logan. Thank you.
You've got quite an extensive background, my friend, to inform this book that qualifies you to write this book. Tell us a little bit about your background and its connection with the military.
Sure. And if you don't mind, I would also today like to very briefly just expand on that background for your viewers. Is that okay?
Absolutely, that'd be great.
Okay. So with respect to my background, I have a military background, a government background, and a very vast business background. Military, I served during the Vietnam War. I also worked for in special forces within our CIA group, which is not in my normal CV for a whole bunch of reasons. But if at the end of this or the beginning of this, if I can tell your viewers, you can go to www.JohnMCapozzi.com. It's all one word, JohnMCapozzi, no dots. .com. That has my whole background, and it has all my books, and it has everything about me. But anyway, with respect to my background, I worked with President Bush 41 for 4 years as a military advisor. Secretary Colin Powell was one of my business partners. I founded America's Promise with Colin, and I've been mentoring high-risk inner-city children for about maybe close to 30 years now. But as you'll read in my background, I've written 10 books in total now. America at Risk was basically number 8. Earlier in my career, years back, one of my earlier books was a book called Getting It Done. And that book is something that maybe we could talk about another day. But briefly, for your viewers, there's 1,000 maxims and anecdotes in that book. It talks about my background in extensive detail. And it's all about getting ahead in life, getting ahead in business. It does have 1,000 maxims, anecdotes, and stories, all about getting ahead in life, getting ahead in business. And number 1,000 in that book is how I got 13 corporate promotions in 13 years.
Wow.
I have hundreds of letters from people who got that book. There's about 400,000 copies out in circulation. I have about 100 letters, more than that actually, of people who got the book and said, I read number 1,000 and I got promoted. It has stories about people who never went to college and became billionaires. It has stories, hundreds of stories about anecdotes about people who got ahead in life. My favorite one is from Wayne Gretzky, the famous hockey player. And Wayne was quoted as saying, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. That's about hockey. However, I use that constantly in my speaking at colleges to students all over, my speaking engagements all over, because you miss 100% of the shots you never take could pertain to anything. It could pertain to meeting somebody in an elevator and you don't say hello, you don't know who that person is, you don't know what's going to happen. In business, if you have a great idea for a business and you don't do something with it, take the shot, you're never going to move forward. So that Wayne Gretzky quote's a great one. I remember years ago, my son, he went to an interesting party, and I said, go over and talk to that young lady if she looks attractive. If you don't, you miss 100% of the shots. There's a story in there also about how I earned $10 million in 1 year, and it tells exactly what I did. Anyway, over the years, I've won 3 literary awards. I've been considered a research freak by all my friends, and my books are all based on irrefutable facts. Yeah. And now about American at Risk. In 2012, I had lunch with a friend from the CIA and FBI, and we talked about a whole bunch of things. The subject of terrorism came up. They said, we can't stop a lone terrorist. I looked at them. I thought they were crazy. No, we can stop 30 people in ISIS or Al Qaeda or whatever. We can get a Farsi speaking guy to get into the group. But if it's a 1 or 2 person terrorist group, a guy and his brother, let's say, or a guy and his cousin, or a guy and his best friend, he said, very impossible for us to penetrate that. He said, then he went on and he said, our southern border, this was in 2012, our southern border, we're letting millions of people in. We don't know who they are. And the Canadian border is just as bad. You could drive across from Buffalo to Vancouver. You'll come to a road. It says, welcome to America. In you go. And nobody there. And then you have the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. There's probably over 1,000 marinas and ports, small marinas, where a fishing boat can go out into international water, meet with a rendezvous with a freighter, and transport anything back into America. One of the stories that motivated me most was the FBI guy said to me, look, let me tell you what would happen if somebody were to set off something like a nuclear bomb in Washington, D.C. He said, we would instantly lose millions of people. We'd lose the White House. We'd lose the Pentagon. We'd lose the Congress, Senate. We'd lose FBI, CIA. We'd lose dozens and dozens of critical agencies that are very, very important to the country. And he got my attention. So after that lunch, I went back and I started to write America at Risk. I wrote the manuscript. Then I said, wait a minute, I'm not a guy that is known for fiction. America at Risk was my first book of fiction. Mm-hmm. So I said, I got to do my research. I got to see if I can find some fiction author who's known, and maybe he'll put his name on my book if he liked it. So I did my work and I contacted Tom Clancy. I got Clancy on the phone. I spoke to him for 45 minutes and he told me about his background, how he sold insurance and how he got into writing and all of that. And he pushed me to put my name on the book. I said, no, let's do the first one. I'm going to send it to you. He said, fine, send it to me. I sent him the book. And about 3 days later, he called me up. He said, his exact words, I never forgot it. He said, this book is outrageous, but everybody in America should read this book. So he then asked me if I changed the ending because it ended. He said, no, have it end so we can have sequel work if we want to do another book or a movie or a TV. He said, this would make a great film or TV. So I said, okay. So I fixed the book and then we entered into a 50-50 agreement. And then right after that, in 2013, he had a heart attack and he died. Oh. And I did nothing with the book. I left it on my computer. It sat there forever until Iran started to act up. And then I said, I'm going to dust it off and see. Because the book is all about a fictional president who then creates a plan to stop Iran from either making a bomb, buying a bomb, or whatever. But keep in mind that a bad guy with oil money can buy a bomb from or a chemical or whatever mass destruction product from Russia, from Pakistan, from I'm trying to remember India. I'm trying to remember what people who have bombs. China, whatever. North Korea. They would love to sell somebody something. So it's very possible that a corrupt general someplace for 10 or $20 million, which is nothing in oil money, could supply a terrorist, whatever. The jacket quotes, as Logan said, James Stavridis was the former Supreme Commander of NATO. Jay Leno is a friend of mine. But also it goes on. Captain John Doolittle, 25 years running special ops for the Navy SEAL Foundation, Navy SEAL for 25 years. Jimmy Zumwalt, Marine Colonel. His father was Admiral Zumwalt, who was the leader of our military, naval in Vietnam. And he was a business partner of mine. But then even Eric Arad was a military leader, ran one of the major wars in Israel. He was Mossad guy, very good friend of mine. I got some wonderful jacket quotes for this book. But anyway, all of them, when you read the back of the book or inside of the book, the other jacket quotes, they all say the same thing. Everyone in America needs to read this book. The end of the book contains a solution that the FBI guy and the CIA guy said to me, that's the best thing that could happen. So the end of the book has the solution. Now, if we have enough time, Logan, I'd like to talk to you about another book which is called Aquatherapy, which I very briefly can mention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love to hear about it.
Okay, it's a book about how I prevented major surgery. When you read that book, you'll see I was a super jock all my life. High school, ran the mile in the spring, ran cross country in the fall. College, ran the mile, ran cross country. 8 years of running every single day. Then I got into marathon running. Then I got into, the book will explain all of this in great detail. Then I got into squash when I was working in New York, going to college. And I worked in a men's club. They had squash courts. I didn't even know what squash was, but I started playing. I got so involved in it. I started with that club. I started playing 3, 4, 5 games a day, 7 days a week, because I worked on Saturdays and Sundays too.
Wow.
And then that was after college. Then came military. After military, which burned me out for 7 months, I decided to take some time off. I went up to Vermont and I skied. And I skied on the Bromley Mountain in Manchester, Vermont. I skied on their ski patrol, and I skied every day. And I got very, very good at that. Then I got my international certification to become an instructor. And so I kept going along. So then after that, I had my back went out the first time in 1996. I went to Columbia Presbyterian because I had a herniation, and they fixed it. But as I moved to Florida, and I did a tremendous amount of work in Florida, I have a large piece of land in Florida, and I put in all myself. I put in all the specimen trees, palm trees, all kinds of stuff, and I really screwed up my back. So my back went out, and I was near paralyzed. And for a couple of months, 3, 4 months, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk 10 feet. So I gained a lot of weight. So then, rather than take opioids, my doctor convinced me I should maybe look into other things. So I have a friend who's a retired woman. She was a physical therapist. She worked in the Army, and she did work in Iraq and Afghanistan helping disabled vets. And she said to me, look into aquatherapy. I said, what's that? She said, just do the research. You're a research guy. So I did. I started extensive research. And I got a foreword written by one of the top people in that world. I got all kinds of great jacket quotes from that. Admiral Stavridis, by the way, actually is using this book. He and his wife have a pool. He has a home also in Florida. And he said, I use it every day to keep fit. I lost 22 pounds once I started my aquatherapy program. What I did, I started, my research told me I should build my core. So I started doing aqua sit-ups. Then I did aqua arm, forward arm, biceps, triceps, leg exercises. Every part of my body, I figured out an exercise. In the book, there's photographs and images of that. There's also a website. It's called Getting It Done. Aquatherapybook.com. Excuse me. The most important thing about this book, though, is it prevents atrophy. So if you're in a wheelchair now, if you're confined to a bed, if you have one of the jacket quotes talks about this. If you have early stage dementia or early stage Alzheimer, you can go with some help, you can go in a pool and you can do all kinds of exercises safely. You're not going to fall and hit your head. You can do arms, legs, core, stomach, and keep yourself fit, prevent atrophy. That's a big part of the book. So if you have access to a lake, a pond, a pool, ocean, a river, even a YMCA that has a pool, this book is something you might want to read if you have problems with your back, your arms, your legs, your knee, your shoulders, whatever. It's an interesting book. But anyway, so that's kind of my story. So Logan, if you want to back up now and jump into any part of what I just went through.
Absolutely. One question I got to ask you about aquatherapy is, what is an aqua sit-up? Are you actually underwater and sitting up, or tell us how that works?
No, I'll tell you very simply. The book will explain. You need to get and if you go to the book site, it tells you right on there. You can buy all this stuff. You need to have what they call ankle weights, water weights, and I use 5 pounds. You don't even know you're wearing 5 pounds because your body is so buoyant in the water. So you put the leg weights on, and then you need what they call a little float board. That's one of the little boards that the kids use at the beach. It's about 3 feet tops, maybe.
Yeah.
And you hold onto that board. Your weights are down. If you go to the deep end, for instance, if your back is hurting you, I hold it and I shoot down to my bottom in the deep end and I decompress my spine. I do maybe 10 or 15 of those before I do anything. And I decompress my spine. So if my back hurts, it's a miracle when I go in and decompress my spine. But to come back to the sit-ups, you hold that board, you bring your knees up under the board and bring them forward. Hold your toes out of the water. The fact that you're holding your legs out of the water with 5 pounds in each leg, holding that board, you're doing isometric support, back and forth, up and down. I do 100 of those a day. And on YouTube, there's a video I did a while back where after we talked about the book, and after I stood up and I said to the fellow conducting the interview, okay, I want you to do me a favor. Punch me in the stomach. He said, no, I'm not going to punch you in the stomach. I said, no, go ahead, punch me in the stomach. So he punches me a little punch, and I said, is that the best you got? And he said, you want me to hit you harder? I said, yeah, hit me hard. Hit me as hard as you can. So he gives me another shot. And I said, and my wife was, and her nurse were sitting in the audience. They were looking at me smiling. And I said, I said something, I was going to use a bad word, but I said, if that's the best you got, you're in big trouble. I pissed him off. I shouldn't say that. I upset him to the extent that he hauls off and gives me a punch in the stomach so hard, he pushed me almost off the stage. But he said, oh my God, I hurt my wrist. I hurt my wrist. My stomach is like a rock because I've been doing this program now for almost 5 years, and I haven't missed a day. If it rains, I'm in the pool. Why? Why not? If there's thundering lightning, my wife and everybody are screaming at me, get out of the pool. I'm in the pool every day, and I haven't missed a day. And so I do my regular routine, which takes about 45 minutes, arms, legs, chest, all that stuff. And so that's that program.
Well, that's great. That sounds really, really wonderful. Low impact, of course. And, it's a great exercise to do if your back is hurting you. And of course, by strengthening your back, your stomach and your core, you're actually strengthening your back as well. Great. Let's turn back to America at risk.
Sure.
Let's talk about a big fear a lot of people have. Is Iran a nuclear state? Do you think it already has nuclear capabilities?
They say the last word I've heard from the White House was they already have refined the nuclear product. They don't know if it's weapons grade yet, but they suspect it is. I have the fear that if they can't negotiate a deal to stop it, I have a fear talking to my Israel. One of the things it's in my resume. It's on JMC JohnMCapozzi.com too. It says it in there. Because when I worked with our government, one of my assignments was to work with the Mossad. I spent 14 years as an advisor to the Israelis. The Israelis have openly said that the second they know Iran has a nuclear weapon, they're going to start a war. They're going to attack. I believe they're going to do it. And we've given them bunker buster bombs to see if they can do a lot of damage. But I think we're on the verge of something. So hopefully this President Trump will sign some kind of an agreement with Iran to stop them, to slow them down. And I think the people of Iran, in my work, I did a lot of research for the book has a lot about Iran. I mean, and by the way, all my research is such that in all my books, every restaurant's the real restaurant, the address, the real address, the towns, the cities, all real. There's a lot of history about different parts of the book. There's a lot of history about Iran in the book because the team that goes to Iran moves from town to town, city to city, etc. It's all very accurate stuff, and they get support from Navy SEALs, they get support from the CIA. The book has got a lot of government in it, and then it moves on into other parts of the world. Switzerland, the Caribbean, everything is very accurate. The hotels are the real hotels. Everything is real. Even the restaurants, what they eat, the real restaurant tells what they're eating. So there's a lot of, the book is very interesting about the subject itself, but then built around it is a lot of interesting facts too.
Absolutely. A dirty bomb has been a real fear of America for a long time. Like you said, it's almost easier to stop an organized army or a group of terrorists that are a pack of 30, but a lone wolf with, let's say, a dirty bomb coming in through a small port in Central California could be a nightmare, right?
Logan, I have a 50-foot fishing boat that I've had for years. I keep it in Connecticut. I go out way into international waters with that boat to tuna fish. And all my years of boating, and it's been 25, 30 years, I have never once, not once, seen or been stopped by a Coast Guard boat. I could easily rendezvous with a freighter, easily. I could bring that boat into a little teeny port in outside of Milford, Connecticut, and nobody would know at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I could get off that boat, 50-foot boat, and I could bring anything I want on shore and rendezvous with somebody with a car to take it to California, to take it to Washington, to take it to New York City. Imagine if it went off in New York City. Same
Yeah.
problem, huge damage. Yes, we're
Right.
very vulnerable. All those ports from Vancouver to San Diego. I mean, they could even come into San Francisco Harbor where you are.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to stop them.
Yeah. It's a frightening premise, and the why it's really frightening because it's a real threat. You know, this could
Yes.
happen. Our borders are obviously soft. Millions of people have poured into our country unchecked, undocumented, uninspected, no background checks over the last few years alone, right?
Well, and they have the money to pay the cartels who have tunnels. I mean, we're catching a lot of the tunnels, but some of these tunnels are very sophisticated. Some of them are down 50, 75, 100 feet, and the sonar, the ground sonar won't even hear them. I mean, so for 20, 30 million dollars, the cartel could bring something through the tunnel into America. There's a lot of ways to get it in. So yes, we're very, very one. The end of the boat, end of the book, I said before, does talk about what the FBI said to me and CIA said to me is a solution. And it's and I'm laughing because at the end of the book, James Stavridis, I put him in the book. James Stavridis is a former Navy guy, and he's running a marina in Canada, and he actually came very close to stopping something very bad. But the readers will have fun when they read James Stavridis in the book. So anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The book is very, very entertaining. It's a thrilling thriller, as we like to say. We talked about Tom Clancy. That was quite an endorsement, quite a partnership you had there.
Yeah.
And of course, when you think of Tom Clancy, you often think of his movies and his TV series. Have you envisioned America at Risk as a film?
Well, he did. He said
Yeah.
to me, "Oh my God, this is a great film." That's why he told me to change the ending to a sequel because he wanted it to be like the James Bond movies where you could have, whatever. Oh, and by the way, where did I put them? Here. Hang on a second. I meant to do this earlier and I forgot. So my camera's not working, but I hope you can see
I
this.
can see it. Yep, America at Risk right there with
So
the
that's
big
that's the
nuclear
book.
mushroom.
Okay. And then the Getting It Done book is this one.
Gotcha.
Now, the back of this book,
Yep.
you read it, if you go to the synopsis on Amazon, all these books are on Amazon. If you go to the synopsis, you're not going to believe the endorsements of this book. It's president of this, chairman of that, president of this, chairman of that. It's people have said to me, "How did you ever get all these people to endorse this book?" And it's because the book is so interesting about getting ahead in life, getting ahead in business. And then this is the aquatherapy book. This is what's
Hold that up a little higher.
Oh, you got it better?
Yeah, perfect. Yep. How I prevented major surgery and got my life back. Yep.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Now, this book won a gold medal. Literally, I've got three awards. This one won the gold medal for in the category of how-to books and self-help books. I won 2 silver medals also. So now one last thing, because we're running low on time. I don't know, you'll have to yell at me when we run out of time. But there's another book on my site which is called Payback, which is interesting for people who want to read about history. My Mossad friend called me. Oh, this is about now 2 years ago, and he said, "Are you still writing all those silly books?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "I want you to write a book about Hitler, 1939, and what happened in Germany, what happened in World War II." So I said, "Why?" He said, "Because there's a huge increase in anti-Semitism." And he said, Schindler's List came out, And Schindler's List was great. 250 million people either saw the movie or read the book. He said, right now, if you ask somebody 16, 17, 18 years old, what was the Holocaust? He said, I guarantee you 99% of them won't know because we don't teach it anymore. In certain red states, they're even taking the Holocaust right out of the schools. So he said, do me a favor, write a book about that. So I did. I wrote Payback, and it's all about 1939. It's all about how Nazi collaborators worked with the Swiss government. And that book is 100% irrefutable facts. And it talks about how they stole the money from millions of Jewish people, not just in Germany, across all of Europe. And then they turned the names over to the SS, and they were all sent to the camps to hide what they did. The back of the book talks about how the Swiss government provided Hitler with his funding. They estimate if the Swiss government didn't give him the money, the war would have ended at least 2 years earlier, and we would have saved millions of people, millions of lives. But that book is it's fiction. It's based on irrefutable facts. So if any of your listeners have an interest in that subject matter, that's an interesting read also.
Absolutely. We have about 3 minutes left, so I want to turn back to another one of the books you mentioned,
Sure.
Getting It Done.
Yes.
That is a self-help book, a how to make it book, a success book. What would you say the essence of it is? You mentioned before going out there and taking the shot. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, as you quoted Wayne Gretzky. Putting yourself out there, making the connections, talking to people in elevators. You never know who's going to help you, right?
You don't know. You don't know who these people are. And it's a funny thing. I do it all the time. My kids used to say to me, Dad, why do you do that? If I get in an elevator or wherever, and I'm standing there and there's somebody standing next to me, guy, gal, whatever, I say hello. And people, it's interesting. People turn in situations like that and they enjoy communicating. It breaks their thoughts, whatever, and they talk. And then you could say to you, you work in this building. Who are you? Whatever. Talking to people I do it all the time. People come to my home to do work. I always chit chat with them and whatever. Yeah. But that book also has Wayne Gretzky for sure. But there are hundreds from Winston Churchill to everybody you can think of. Every human being that's popular, famous is in that book. The research that went into that book is extensive, and I say there's 1,000 stories, maxims, anecdotes, and stories. Some of the stories, like I mentioned earlier, one of the stories is how I earned $10 million in 1 year. People say to me, "My God, that was so simple, and you did what you did." But there's stories about my food business. Everybody said to me, "You're going to start a food company?" This was back in the early 90s. I said, "Yes, I have a great idea for a product." Well, you're going to go against Nabisco, Pepperidge Farm, Keebler, all those. They'll eat you alive. They have millions and millions of dollars in advertising. They'll outspend you. I said, "I don't care. I think I got an idea." So I raised $3 million. I started a food business. And in 5 years, I was doing 52 million in sales. I sold it to the Campbell Soup Company, and they merged it with Pepperidge Farm. But that story is in that book. And there's tons of stories like that, of other people who have come up with an idea that was stupid. At least it seems stupid, and they became billionaires. So it's an interesting read.
It is an interesting read. There is no such thing as a stupid question. There is no such thing as a stupid idea. The only thing is stupid is if you dismiss it out of hand. If you've got an idea, think it through. It could be the one that makes you $10 million in a year. We do got to run, but let's remind the folks at home about the name of the book we've been discussing today. It is called America at Risk. See something, say something. In the shadows, silence. Threat of Iran's nuclear weapons looms. It is a gripping political thriller that feels all too real because a lot of it is real. It's a must read for anyone concerned about our national security. John, thank you so much for joining us here today on GBN.
Oh, I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great having you on the show. I appreciate your stories and your insight to the folks at home. I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.